welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the USFL podcast. I'm the ref, as always, representing Pro Football Newsroom, the number one source in alternative football news. We got all sorts of newsrooms, but the one we're looking at the most today is USFL Newsroom. So check it out daily, USFLnewsroom.com for all the latest USFL news. God, I almost got through it without slipping up, but I'm joined as always by my man, Zach Kyleman. How are you doing today, my friend?
Well, I'm still slightly recouping from another fantastic week of USFL football. We'll get into that, of course, later on in the show. You and I, similar deals. We're both snake bitten. You just seem to get the worst end of the stick, I think, and just how these things come down the wire. But like for me, I'm doing fine overall. I'm just happy. Again, as I've said, I love football. There's more football on in the spring right now. It's good quality football at this moment, and it's only going to keep getting better, people. That's what's great. We're over halfway through now, and we keep seeing more and more impressive games, more stuff that if you are tuning in, you're not going to be disappointed. It's going to give you a quality time and experience in terms of a television broadcast. So I had a great weekend. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm assuming you did too. I mean,
other than the obvious reason why I wouldn't have a great weekend, the rest of it was fine. And we'll talk about the games a little bit later on, but I'm sure everybody is well aware that the Houston Gamblers there's something about that last play of the game that really gets them every time. I don't know, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Before we get to the news, let's run through all the regular good stuff. You know, we're on social media, we're on YouTube, we're everywhere. Go ahead and follow us at USFL Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as YouTube. And of course, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the bell. It builds morale. It'll give you a good time. If you're like Zach and I, you're feeling probably a little bit beat up by your team's performance, click the bell, feel a little bit better about yourself. And here's the good news, buddy. If you do that, you have a chance to win a couple things. First and foremost, a jersey, official USFL jersey, which should be out of pre-sale soon. But once we hit 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube, we're giving away one of those jerseys. Here's another one for you with an extra step. You also have to follow us on Twitter at USFL Podcast. But we're giving away 2 tickets to the USFL Championship. So follow along, subscribe, click the bell, and make sure you leave a comment because that's how we're going to pick a winner here. But every video, if you want another chance to win, leave a comment. So if you leave a comment on this video, next week's video, you're good to go. And we'll be announcing the winners the week before. So not the episode before, but the week before the championship game, right before the playoffs, just so you have a little bit of time to kind of get organized, get everything ready. And the good news is if you win those tickets and you're going to the game, you can come hang out with us because it was so nice. We're doing it twice. Summer Stock, July 2nd, July 3rd, day 1. We're all meeting at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, doing a group tour. I'm especially excited about that. Like I said, it's been maybe since I was 13, maybe a little bit younger since I've been there. And then day 2 on the 3rd, the day before the 4th of July, leading up to the USFL Championship. The party's in the parking lot. Meet us for Summer Stock, 4-hour event. We're doing a live podcast, guests, giveaways, good times. We're going to have a grill with some food. So even if you don't like us, come and get a hot dog, get signed up. I'm looking forward to that, Zach. Like I said, I had so much fun at Springstock. I said, we got to do this big this time. Canton, I really don't know what to expect. At least Birmingham, we have the local crowd. But I'm thinking the people that do show up to that championship game, they are going to be rowdy, and those are the type of fans that I like to party with. Just saying it.
Ooh, it's going to be a thrill. I think that you're going to see a nice crowd come out there to Canton, Ohio. Again, the venue is awesome in terms of Tom Benson Stadium. I've been there myself for a game. It's been a little bit too for me, but last time I was out there, really like the venue. The fact it's a high school stadium is insane to me, but that's just Ohio. It's a serious football state. You're going to get people to come out that way. And then the Hall of Fame, I mean, it's of course NFL legends aplenty, but I mean, they have plenty of artifacts for spring and alt football fans. I mean, heck, the football that was the first TD catch for this season is in Canton, Ohio right now. The one that Randy Satterfield caught against the Birmingham Stallions. So that'll be out there too. So if you're out there, you want to check that out, you want to check out the OG version stuff that they have out there in that collection as well, maybe some XFL things. I mean, if you're a football fan, I mean, it's one of the meccas for that place. You get the championship game, the playoffs there too. You get history of the sport in the making. What more can you ask for?
I mean, it'll
be a good time. And you get summer stock where you get to see both of us and we get to do a kick-ass multiple-hour broadcast with a bunch of good guys that love the sport too.
Well, and once again, if you show up in person, we're going to have those trading cards, those USFL podcast trading cards. So again, come and get some free goodies. We're going to have some free food, free drinks, BYOB if you want alcoholic, because, hey, I ain't made like that just yet. But we look forward to hanging out with all you guys. I'm just looking forward to the championship game. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later. The playoff picture starting to kind of reveal itself. But before we get into that, we have some other news to talk about. Now, I think this is a great way to start the episode because we've always talked about how there's this unspoken 3-year plan in place for the USFL. Year 1, get something on the field. Year 2, expand upon that. And year 3, kind of be at 100% operational, having all your teams in your cities, things of that nature. And it's cutting costs, but it's making sure that they're doing it right. Like, let's be honest here. There's a graveyard of spring leagues that have come and gone, and they've all had a few little hitches. Now, the last iteration of the XFL, a little bit different. I get it. And I think if it wasn't different, I don't think Fox would be getting in the game. I think they saw what was happening, and they were on the ground with them and said, you know what, we could do this, but we're going to do it our way. Well, now we have some comments from Lachlan Murdoch, CEO of Fox. He sat down with Axios to talk about the future of Fox, right? They're going into more lifestyle program. We've talked about it off camera, kind of the direction that Fox is going, but hidden in there was a little tidbit about the USFL. Now, it's not much, but it did get people talking online. Some good, some bad, but I have my own take on this, and we'll go over it. But essentially, Murdoch said Fox plans to continue building up small local teams and then sell those franchises to local owners in the next 5 to 7 years. Now, naturally, a lot of people took that as teams aren't getting private owners for the next 5 to 7 years. And then the second take was that this seems to allude to the fact that teams aren't going to be in their markets to 5 to 7 years. And I don't think that's the case. Now, speculation zone, here's my take on it. I think they're trying to have the teams sold, all of them, in the next 5 to 7 years, meaning we could hear about a private owner in this offseason. We could hear, and I'm not saying that we will. I think we could in season 2. More likely we start hearing them in season 3 or leading up to season 3. But it depends how it all shakes out. If it's a big rollout or if it's one at a time. And I think it'll be one at a time.
Well, let's remember the pattern that they wanted to follow in the first 3 years of this entire setup. So year 1, obviously, we're here in Birmingham, as has been mentioned many a times. And I'll re-mention it to you if you're brand new again. League's playing all its games in Birmingham this first season. It's a hub. It's for all the players and all the personnel to be there in one spot. It's a cost-saving measure. I can keep going on. But it's mainly to help start the league out and control its growth as you go down the line. Survivability, that's been a big takeaway from this. Years 2 and 3, kind of up in the air still, but those details, A, are being fleshed out currently and will be going into the offseason. B, that could be anything ranging from all teams are in their local markets next year to half the teams are in the local markets and Birmingham's hosting a hub to maybe separate hubs. There's a lot of options that Fox can go with right now that they are thinking about. I mean, that's the thing. I think a lot of this we're learning more and more for them, as we've seen in just the broadcasts. It's experimenting. There is a lot of experimenting and trying to get data for them that makes sense as to what they can break down during this time of year and what works well, what doesn't work well for the company, and what the league can do. So the first 3 years, there's still a lot of stuff up in the air. 5 to 7 years, the way I take this away is Fox, as they've been stressing, as Mike Mulvihill has said after week 2, as well as you've seen with like Robert Gottlieb and company, though a bunch of the executives that have talked on social media or in articles at length across various platforms, they want to be patient. And I think that just stresses again that the patience is there. Like Fox does see this as something that could be a big deal and that could be their baby that they have to nurture, grow, and show off and keep on adapting as it goes. They do have competition. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the XFL is the big name in the room. It's 2 separate times a year, but it's another spring football league. Credit, though, you look at the numbers that they've been getting through TV. You look at what people have been saying about the good quality of play. You look at the fact that there's 2-year contracts for a lot of these players. Yes, there's some new wrinkles that we can talk about, but still, there's stuff that they can latch onto and build and grow with that. The patience angle that the CEO here with Lachlan is mentioning, I know I said that weird. Nonetheless, Mr. Murdoch himself, I'll put it that way. The way he's mentioning 5 to 7 years, it's patience. It adds into that mindset. And it means that Fox is in this for the long haul. They feel they're in it for the long haul.
Well, that's the big thing. So two takeaways for me. One, I didn't know Lachlan Murdoch was such a fan of Frank Murtha. Patience is strength. Sign us up.
Yeah, Scott. And good inside joke. I MLFB community, God bless you.
Sign you guys up. You know what? Sign you guys up. I'll be there at that first game if it ever happens. So you know what? Sign them up.
Same here.
But here's the real takeaway. The non-joke takeaway for me is Fox. It's no longer a 3-year thing, right? They're at least talking about it in 5 to 7 years, right? That tells me they're in it for the long haul, right? The fact that they're even mentioning this as even just a small footnote and not, hey, we're going to be around. This is just business as usual for them, right? Now, yes, they're starting out a little bit small, but that's kind of the whole precipice behind this. And when you look at the original USFL, you look at the Dixon plan. I mean, it was all about being lean and mean, and I mean. Yes, they're 2 different leagues, 2 different owners, 2 different entities. But if there's anything if there's anything to hold on to from that original league or any league for that matter, is that option or a way to be sustainable, right? To stick around, to not be a one and done, to make it not only a full season, but a season 2, season 3, and 4 and beyond, because once you get into that 4 or 5 territory, now we're really talking uncharted. We're getting antsy because we're getting to the end of a first season, which it's been a while. But once we get to that season 2, season 3, by 4, I think you're going to see legitimate stars in there, guys that decide to stick around. They get better playing time. Maybe they start getting endorsement deals. Yeah, maybe it's not like a Gatorade or a Nike, but an Adidas is nice. Or I don't know what the products out there that the kids are wearing nowadays. Maybe it's an NFT thing. I don't know. Maybe Seth Green will create his own NFT so it doesn't get stolen and make a new TV show on that. I don't know. But where I'm trying to get here is,
man,
I love seeing the fact that they're talking about 5 to 7 years, not 1 to 2 to 2 to 3. Like they're going way out there in terms of. I don't think we've heard that other than, and where credit is due, the new 3.0 version of the XFL where they signed a 5-year deal. So, credit where credit's due. I'm a fan of both. I don't understand the bickering online. And if you're a fan of one or the other and you don't like the other, hey, so be it. Fans are fans of things that they want to be. But don't pile on. We're having fun watching silly football. Join the party, not join the hate. Either way.
I love the sport, and that's the main thing. I'm glad that you get players getting more opportunities, more avenues to go and explore what they find as a passion, as a career opportunity to continue on beyond college. That's the beauty of these alternative leagues, and that's something I've always loved. So I'm the same way. I want both these leagues to thrive. It's competition, though. That's the thing. That's the part you got to keep in mind. It's competition, but I love football. Mm-hmm. So it's more football, and as long as they aren't messing with, I've said this before, as long as they aren't messing with players and they aren't treating them poorly, as long as the quality football is good for that part, I'll watch it. Like, that's the thing. I will support it. I'll give it a shot. I'll let the business do its thing. And I want to let people know that's out there. Mm-hmm. I love these leagues. We're on a USFL show, but both me and Stefan off field here, we like different brands. I've talked arena extensively on this show, for crying out loud. I cannot say enough how much I love the 50-yard game.
I got started running XFL Newsroom, for crying out loud. Yeah. So, it is what it is. So
to circle back real quick and just, I guess, wrap up my points on this with the timeline. Mm-hmm. There are some things, of course, he's mentioning 5 to 7 years. There are some things you got to watch out for that are in in the category of before that. So I, of course, mentioned the Hub. The other one, too, and that's what people are going to talk about as we go down the line as every season goes on. Remember, the NBC deal for TV is 3 years. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, is your first benchmark. Does NBC like it? Do they re-up? That's, I think, the first sign that'll show you, hey, this thing's been making some strides. Because if your broadcast company re-ups again and they say this is worth my coin, right, if you will, right. It's worth putting on for my Q2 broadcasting schedule, which is what the USFL's in, for terms of finance, then yeah, that's a good sign to me. I think of NBC being kind of the outside angle of this, they broadcast, but they're not like direct. This isn't tied directly to their company. They're doing rights fees. It's to fill TV mostly for them. Whereas Fox, it's like, this is an arm, or something that they're trying to make an arm of. So I think that's your first benchmark. 5 to 7 years, though, I do like the ambition. I like that Fox sees this as a viable sports entity that they can build and make it their own baby, put it in their own house and help grow it. But I think if you guys really want to watch like the years down the line, year 3 to me is where you're going to see, is this going to make or break and keep on moving? TV's the name of the game. If NBC goes in again and things keep moving up and up, signs are moving upward in the right direction for fans too. That's what you got to watch out for. Love the optimism, but I do want to add that point just to put a little perspective on what the timeline looks like for the league to even get to that 5 to 7 year mark, if we're talking about it too.
Right. Now, I'll say this. I think if numbers stay consistent, even with just this season, clearly I want to see a bump next year and a bump in season 3. But even if they stay consistent, I think that they have a good chance of renewing that deal, whether it's NBC or somebody else. I'm not going to debate there. We've looked at the competitors alone. Now, MLS is the one that I'm going to call out. I like MLS too. But, they get a lot of money, and I'd say the numbers are very comparable when it comes to ratings. There's more MLS games, and there's different markets, blah, 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 blah. But either way, this to me is nothing but a positive thing. I'm not concerned about the 5 to 7 year timeline. In fact, I'm happy about that because, again, to me, it tells me that Fox is looking further down the road than we've ever even talked about. So that's my big takeaway on this whole thing. But
I think too, you want to add on another part. Lachlan didn't even have to mention this really. That's another thing. Like USFL is a new entity. Sure, it's something that they're promoting heavy, but he doesn't have to go into this interview and even talk about it. He can just talk about the sports rights deals or angles on that. The fact that you get an exclusive clip just on the league, that shows that that Fox itself is focused. They do see this as something that is valuable. So take that away too. That's the CEO of the group that's running what we're able to do, what we're able to see. That's the one that's hiring Daryl Johnston, helping get all these coaches filled in and all that. Just being mentioned like that means that they do care and look at this product as something that they can grow. So, add that as well to your at least your stash of thoughts while you take that away.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's when they don't talk about you anymore. That's when I'll be worrying. One of those quarterly earnings calls and the USFL doesn't get brought up. I'll be like, what don't they want to say? But so far so good. They've been getting mentions, and even this again, it's just an interview, and I'll take whatever nuggets we can get because it's anything about the USFL. I'm happy to talk about it, but it's crazy to think, Zach, we started this show at the beginning of the year, and it seems just like yesterday when the season started. We're already over halfway through the season. The playoffs are going to be here before you know it. Well, earlier this week, the USFL announced how they're going to deal with head-to-head ties. What are the tiebreakers going into the playoffs, right? So if we run into a scenario where the Stars are tied with somehow the Maulers or the Panthers, right? Because it could happen. One of them has to start striking soon, but I think that's the closest we're going to get to it, except for maybe the Breakers and the Bandits down south. This is how we'll deal with it. Do you want to run through these items here?
Yeah, let's do it here. So here's your tiebreaker scenarios. This will be compared to most importance, by the way. So what is at least a higher class of what you need to be considering on where standings will land. So first off, head-to-head matchups. So pretty straightforward. If you're a divisional opponent and you swept somebody, or if you just won the only matchup of the year, for example. Simple as that. Right. You're going to get put ahead. This is for divisional sake, like 2 matchups in particular. You win both, yeah, you instantly get that spot, and you're ahead. If it's not that, then it goes by best won-loss percentage in games played within a division. So then we're talking divisional stuff. So now we're getting into like the typical like NFL divisional type of setup where, say you have, say your opponent, for example, we have in the USFL, you have 6 divisional games. So say for the example, the Bandits Breakers, they finish 6 and 4 or 7 and 3 apiece. Like they're tied there. And you get one that gets, of course, 3 and 3. The other's 4 and 2 in division. Well, obviously, the one that won 4 games out of the 6 in the division is going to be getting that second seed in the playoffs. End of story. The other one, bad luck, too bad. Should have won a little bit more. Beyond that, strength of victory. So, yeah, at that point, this is where it gets a little more complicated. Right. We're talking like, what was the value of a win? We're adding of course, like overall records per the wins of said other teams. Really convoluted, but you just got to add some things up and kind of go by the win percentages of the teams that they played in terms of wins, that is. So keep that in mind. After that, best net points, simple as that, points for. Look at that category on your standings. If one is over the other, if one offense is better than the other one, you're going to be overall getting that above the other team. Best net touchdowns, well, simple as that. Whoever has the most TDs in that one. And by the way, I should be net. So points for, points against. So best TDs given up, TDs added to your score. Just to clarify, I don't want to rush ahead like I'm sounding like it was one-sided. Finally, though, coin toss, and I hope it never comes to the coin toss.
Oh, I hope it does. I hope it does.
Hope it does.
Well, because
you hope it's a game of chance.
Yes, because I want to see the banter online because I know there's going to be a lot of people. But here's the thing: if you make it all the way through this list, the only other thing I would say, other than a coin toss, and the league would never do this, I say you get 1 round of overtime, a shootout to see who goes. But that would never happen because, this is the year it could happen because they're all in one hub.
You could do that on a live stream. I think you could do that. You could set it up where you have the system midweek. You do it just like the scrimmages. You get the 2 teams out there. They do a shootout. Whoever wins the shootout on the scrimmage gets, I'd rather do that than the coin toss. Screw the coin toss. That's what you do. Show off the OT. Do it in that case. But that'd be such a far-fetched scenario.
It would have to be ridiculous.
It would have to be both teams were practically, the fact both teams have to practically be the same and be even, split each other. It was like maybe a 1 score off from each side type of, or fair. I don't think you ever see a coin toss. It would be so hard. But it's pretty these are some of the standard ones in the NFL. These don't surprise me. And honestly, it makes plenty of sense to me. You do divisional, you do divisional and head-to-head overall. Those are your main ones you should be looking for. Generally points for and against are always one of the last statistics used in head-to-heads and in for final standings and tiebreakers. So makes a lot of sense. It's pretty straightforward is what I'm trying to imply.
Yeah.
Not too much to go into crazy town with this one.
Yeah, no gimmicks, no twists. It's basically what you need. Now, again, yeah, if it ever got to the coin toss, that's amazing. But I would love to see it. I want to see it just for the fact of having 2 teams so evenly split. But yes, whichever team loses that coin toss, potentially $10,000 plus, because you got to take into account the playoff game before the championship, rides on a coin toss, and that is gnarly. Now, again, I would love to see just an OT shootout, best of 5, something like that. But even then, I don't think, we're not going to see it this year. The closest would be the Breakers and the Bandits. That could maybe even out, but I don't see it happening with the Panthers and the Stars, or if God somehow the Panthers and the Maulers outperform the Stars for the rest of the season and tie up.
Yeah, I'm not banking on any of that, to be frank with you. I wish because there are opportunities really for me, but it ain't happening. It's not. No, it's just not now. Even Brian Scott's getting healthy. The Stars they're gonna be too.
Yeah, good. I think they're gonna be good. Well, Case Cookus, he's holding his own.
Case Cookus as well. What can I say? they have enough firepower. I mean, stuff could change. It could change. I'm just also being pessimistic because I haven't seen anything out of Michigan. I mean, they played the Stallions last week, but come on, we're 1-5 for a reason, people.
Yeah, it was.
As I say this with the Generals shirt on, which I swear to God, I just love the logo. That's the reason I got this thing. I swear.
Week 6, though. Week 6 is in the books. We had, I would say, a good, fun week. My team lost. Your team lost. We had a couple of nothing different from our team standpoints, but there were some fun games. Now, a couple interesting things. So we'll go from the top here. We have the Tampa Bay Bandits and the Stars, 35-28. Stars pull it out. Now, this was like a back and forth matchup the whole game. Now, what is interesting out of this is the Bandits now continue their streak of win-loss, win-loss. And the Stars are, I believe now they're pretty much solidifying their spot, at least that number 2 spot in the North. And thanks to the company around them. I mean, right. Te'amu took a tough loss in this game because both teams were out for the kill in this one. It started out, maybe a little bit one-sided. The Stars came out pretty good. But, by the end of the game, that fourth quarter, it was just back and forth. Back and forth. It was basically whoever scored last won, and that just so happened to be the Philadelphia Stars. And Case Cookus, I will say it again, just like I said it a couple weeks ago. The guys around him need to start protecting him a little bit more. It's amazing that he was able to hold into this game and be as productive as he was, because he was like a rag doll out there at some points. Ever since he's come in to start, I look at that and say, well, that's why Brian Scott's injured. So that's one piece of the Stars that they're really going to need to button up if they're really going to be that solid number 2, if they want to beat the Generals. Because the Generals, we'll talk about that later in this week. But takeaways from this game here, what are your thoughts? Good, bad, the ugly?
Oh, look, I'm going to be frank with you. It's one that I was it's one that I was very pleased to see. At this point in the season, I want a back and forth. I want to come down the wire game, because there's a few aspects of this I can take away where it's man, this could have been a different outcome. We could have had, this is the closest we could have had to overtime. And I'll go right to the end of the game. Final play for the Bandits. They get that amazing catch by Dylan to get down to the inside the 10 and set up 4 downs so you can try and get the score. Some people didn't like the play calls. Obviously, some didn't look great. That final one, Cheyenne O'Grady's open. It's just the Tom who couldn't settle in with the pressure in his face. He had a TD. We could have easily had overtime on that 4th down pass. That's the only thing that stinks, because otherwise, Jordan Tom, it's funny, every week when we talk about the Bandits, I think I get a new person every week that goes, man, Jordan, he doesn't look like his old self back from his 2020 days. And then it's early in the game, people will say this. And then all of a sudden he'll come out recent weeks and he'll just light it on fire. This week, 333 yards, 4 touchdowns, 27 of 40 passing. He had 1 interception, which was a blemish. And the Bandits had some fumble issues on offense. Honestly, the main reason why the Stars kept in this game is because they couldn't keep stuff off the turf, or they couldn't keep things in their own hands. Tampa Bay lost the turnover battle badly, but Jordan Tom, dude, I swear, every week people just got to start out, I guess, and give him a little nod man, you ain't looking good, because dude just lights on fire after people say things on either Discord or on Twitter. He's himself. He looks like he's embracing Todd Haley's offense. This game, it looked like it. And I very much am looking forward to seeing how they keep on building up through the rest of this year. I don't know if they'll be in the playoffs. This is a loss that hurts you badly in trying to keep in with the standings, because the Breakers game at the end of the season or later on in the season looms large for them. That rematch, them being 3-2 coming into this past week was massive, but giving up this one, a winnable game with some caveats of them giving it away, didn't help. Whether it was turnovers or Matt Colburn, that running offense just going through Tampa, which surprised me even more because of the fact that the Bandits did so well holding down my Panthers to little to nothing on the ground. But Matthew Colburn just had himself a day. 3 TDs, well over 100 yards rushing. he was a force to be reckoned with. Case Cook has had a few moments, but he didn't have to do much.
Mm-hmm.
He only had 73 yards passing, Stephon.
Which is insane when you look at the score, 35 to 28.
So,
right?
I mean, the Stars, look, you got to take away that, hey, they took care of their opportunities. Bart Andrus has to be walking away with this going, hey, we separate ourselves from the rest of the mud at the bottom of the pack of that division. Now we just got to focus on getting, say, Brian Scott back, staying healthy, which that was a big key, as Colburn had been injured on and off. Same for Darnell Holland had been injured on and off. Get Paul Terry back. You're going to have all your backs back. You got a decent receiving crew. Alexander, being the excellent return man, he is arguably the best one in the league, helps you out. They have a playoff caliber roster. They've just had some on and off injuries, some inconsistencies. Now they have a little bit of a breather, and now it's about just making sure you withhold and sustain that seed. They get another win this week, Stephon. I mean, they could be locking down that second seed here by week 8 or 9 pretty easy.
Yeah, well, especially it depends on how your team does, and then the other team does with Pittsburgh. And we'll talk about their performances. I mean, in fact, the next game up, Michigan Panthers, Birmingham Stallions. Now, a couple takeaways, a couple things to note. One, first, the Discord was furious at Coach Holtz for putting in Alex McGough. But I did see the shift, because then Alex McGough scored a touchdown. And everybody's like, oh, okay, all right. But then he started kind of, and then he kind of softened up. They brought Jamar in the game. And, I mean, the rest says it itself, 33-17. The Panthers, I mean, that running game that they had been working so well for them just wasn't there. They're just not getting everything going. I mean, Shea Patterson looked much better, but they didn't win. I'm 1-5. 1-5. And the Stallions, on the other end, 6-0. Now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was the game that got bumped and moved to CNBC at the end. Is that correct?
Yes, the final few minutes got bumped.
You weren't missing much.
We weren't, because at that point it was 33-17. The Stallions had wrapped up. They had a two possession game at that point. So there's the positive angle on it. Yes, no one wants to see their game bumped. I agree. I was also going, dang, man, what the heck happened? Why am I watching Why am I watching WTHR News right now? So yeah, I was frustrated too. I can't hide that. No curtain, I wanted to see the end of that game just because to finish it.
Right.
But nonetheless, solid stuff. I will say with the whole Jamar McGough thing, I think it's just Skip Holtz gets frustrated when things just aren't going his way, or like, hey, I coached this in practice. Why is this not being translated to the game? Like, for example, you have, Victor Bolden. He's wide open in the end zone, blown coverage. We're talking like towards the end of the first half. And you hear him on the sidelines after this. Jamar Smith throws up a ball that's a corner route with no one covering Bolden. And Bolden, of course, can't drag his feet. So, early impressions are, well, Bolden, he should have dragged his feet, which, of course, Skip kind of gets on him for a second there, says, hey, got to drag those feet. But the real complaint goes to Jamar, which you hear him berate him going, hey, why are you throwing, like even at the end of that, going into the halftime, he's going, I don't understand why we're throwing a corner route to a wide open receiver and trying to make him toe tap. Just throw him open. Like that type of that kind of mechanics and mentality, it's been on and off with Jamar. Like last week, totally on his game. One of the best QBs in the league right now. This week, started out hot. Obviously, the Osiris Mitchell TD throw, he had plenty of room. Mitchell made a great spin around and was able to make that hook route a TD. But Jamar wasn't on his A game 100%. Hell, Victor Bolden really wasn't on his A game 100% either. And I think a lot of that was frustration. They said, screw it, let's just pound it down their throat. Michigan had no answer for the T formation or any of the running plays, which, by the way, Skip Holtz using T formation each week. Who would have put that on my bingo card, that the USFL is repopularizing T formation into the public conscious in terms of football? So, and of course, Bo Scarborough, I mean, he took over second half when it came into more of the running. So they have weapons. It's amazing that they can just switch it up in the middle and be like, yeah, we can throw Alex McGough in, and he's more of a running QB. So we make like a Navy offense and everyone can just do what they want. Like that's how talented they are. Michigan, I don't know. The defensive regression to me has been the biggest aspect of this whole thing. It shocked me. the rushing defense has been astoundingly bad at times the last few weeks. And otherwise it's the usual miscues. Mm-hmm. The Panthers just don't get out of their way either. That's their bread and butter for every game. Eventually they're going to get in their own way. Happens. It happens every game with them.
Yeah. Well, and I know with my team too. It's just one of those things. But yeah, the Stallions, I mean, what we've seen is they started out a little bit slow. They still came out on top, similar to the week prior. They have kind of all the pieces, multiple of each of those pieces. So kind of going back to what we were saying last week, they're really scary. They really are the team to beat, if you ask me this. And they're just further solidifying that. I mean, yes, it was the Panthers. They only have one win on the season. But you know what? They made it through to the end. And like I said, the addition of Scarborough, this is only his second week there, really his first full week, and he's already making an impression. He got Offensive Player of the Week, if I recall correctly.
He did. And I actually I put in our Discord, I said, you watch. He has 120 yards, and because it's now credit, these are technically popularity contests because of the polls, so I have to add that. But you watch because it's going to be votes. He got the 120. He's going to be put in for the vote. He's going to win the vote.
Yeah,
and sure enough, he did without a sweat. Mm-hmm. He won that vote by a good landslide. Even though Colburn, I thought to me was the one that should have got it. In terms of we're doing that, nonetheless, I'm with you. There's so many weapons on the Stallions, and defensively they are deep. Scooby Wright's been out 2 weeks, and they've had no problems in the middle whatsoever. JoJo Tillery who's been making plays for many weeks now gets his Defensive Player of the Week award. DeMarcus Gates, can I say any more about DeMarcus Gates that hasn't been said? There are plenty of weapons for them to dispose of you easily every game, even if they are a second half team. Mm-hmm. Just keeping close. You're doomed or scared to be doomed in the second half if you don't pull away quickly and hold on for dear life.
Well, that was another thing in the Discord. Everybody was so worried that they were down at the half. And I had to remind everybody, the only time they've led in the half was now 2 weeks ago, but the week prior. So once again, they come back from behind, slim trailing there, but they still did it. Michigan, with the one good thing that happened for them, so the Stallions almost clean swept the Players of the Week, but the one lone outsider was Cole Murphy getting the Special Teams Player of the Week for your Panthers there.
He deserved it. Yeah. I think, to me, he deserved it. And we need a win.
Yeah, I
could take the win.
I would have taken it, It's all.
I'm taking the win.
So moving on, though, next game, and this is where I kind of screwed myself with my picks here, is I got a little too fresh, if you will, and I picked the Maulers. I don't know what I was thinking. 26-16. Honestly, looking at the score, it feels like the Breakers should have been up by maybe 20 more points. Sloter's still working through some of those injuries, but he is starting to get a little bit more mobile, and that should worry everybody else in the South Division, because once he can get 100% on his legs, then he's the full threat. Because, we've seen what he can do in the air. I think a lot of the mistakes he's been making in the last few weeks is mainly because he is injured. He's not able to get out of the pocket or wiggle around as much as he's used to, so he's either throwing it prematurely or he's just off his game. There's a lot to your balance with your legs. It might not seem like it, but not having your legs is pretty big for a flipping quarterback, even if you're not a running quarterback. Trust it.
Right. He's been known to be more mobile, so that element has been lost in part of Larry Fedora's offense. They, as you can tell, he runs a more traditional college RPO system, and not being able to have Kyle to be as much of a mobile threat, it limits what you can do, because defenses will essentially say, all right, well, we know he has a bad groin and he's got some messed up other bodily injuries right now. Let's just pressure him. And he's been mixed in terms of how he responds to pressure coming from blitzes or from the outside. This game, they really didn't have to do much. They really leaned on Jones and Ellis most of the afternoon, as well as the defense, honestly. Pittsburgh, for you fans out there, the Pittsburgh fans that tune in, I can name a few of them already. You got to be kicking yourself again this week, because I felt like a slow start really burned them. You watch that second half performance. Vad Lee, there were moments. He had a rocky first half, but you can tell this is a team that still has some dysfunction on certain things when it comes to executing the play calling and what's available. For example, and I'll even say it's a badly thrown ball, that pick six that Ike Brown had. Mm-hmm. That was, you could tell Vad was upset with how Bailey Gaither ran and looked at the route, and they both were talked to on the sideline about that specific play. That's just been the MO for Pittsburgh a lot of times. Things just don't click fully. Luckily, though, you have a quarterback that has a lot of heart and one that is becoming kind of the soul, the main mentor, the main calm-headed guy in the room at times when he's not upset his receivers, that is, behind center. So they have their guy, I think, as well as they've been signing other QBs, too. They're Roland Rivers, I hear, is a good dude from Slippery Rock that has won the Best Player in D2 awards and stuff like that. I mean, hey, there's a future they're building up to as well. It's getting close to the offseason probably for them. But, if Vad stays on, I mean, there's good positives you can take away with that. They just got to get off to a hotter start, and they got to execute their game plan better. And Kirby needs to know how to mix up a game plan.
Thank you. That's where I was about to go.
You were about to say it.
How many times can you run down the middle, get nothing, and expect a different result? I mean, my God. That was another thing. Watching the Discord, people joking, they're just going to run it down the middle again. Oh, my God, he did it. He did it. And then they did it 2 more times. I mean, there was a couple mistakes here because the Maulers, strangely enough, were kind of in this for a second. If they would have went for 3 after that touchdown, it would have been a 1-possession game. But then if they're on they ran it down the middle so many times, it was almost like they started leaning on Vad Lee to start making the plays, and I don't know if that's the case, but it feels like it. And once they started doing that, they started having a little bit of success. So I wonder how we go into week 7 here, if we see a little bit of change there. But I mean, at this point, other than a miracle, it is a little too late to redeem your season. Not as bad as the next game, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely one of the 3 that I'm saying at this point, and credit, it's not over yet. It's 2 games out. There's still enough on the schedule, but I got the Maulers pegged as one that's already looking at the offseason going, we're going to see what we got, reset for year 2, and move on like that. And again, transaction wire wise, they kind of are already looking at that as what they're doing. They actually signed a guy that is from my alma mater, Ball State, James Gilbert. I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, they already got some good running backs on that team, but dude is an underrated product. That was another good pickup. If you got RB talent, watch out for him, man. He's a good one from Ball State to keep in mind. But yeah, Vad, I mean, he's the heart and soul of this team, it seems already. Bailey Gaither, you can argue, is another one of those.
Oh, yeah, he's good.
I mean, they got good receivers. Bailey Gaither and Trey Walker, they have good talents. They just got to put together. It's got to be consistently put together. I think that's what drives me and you nuts. They have people that they can operate and be successful with. They just have been so off on how they run that roster, how they run that squad.
Well, one thing that does bring me a little bit of joy is we have a whole set of fans out there that aren't Lions fans that are learning what it feels like to be a Lions fan. With this team. Someone kind of like the next game. And my wife says maybe I cursed them. Maybe I gave him the Lions curse. I'm not going to go that far.
Okay.
But once again, Zach, not the final minute of the game, not the final drive of the game, the final play of the game, the Houston Gamblers coughed it up. They gave the Generals 1 inch too many, 26-25.
It's 3 weeks now.
My God.
3 straight weeks.
My wife laughed so hard when I was watching the game this week, because right at that last pass, I said, oh my God, we suck. And I don't know, she thought it was funny. She laughs at my misery. But my goodness, again, here's their biggest mistake. Here was their big mistake, and this is tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but partially true. They went out of their way to get the lead before the half ended. All you need to do is look at every other week and say, well, we've led at the half. We've lost the game. I get it. I know. Tongue in cheek. You really want those points because if you didn't get them, it wouldn't have been a close game.
You You want to be down by 1 just to say, the tides have turned.
Yeah.
We'll flip it around.
Well, maybe that's
now.
it. Maybe they think they are playing horseshoes out there. And to them, hey, good time. Or golf. Hey, we won by 1. No, you didn't. Oh my God. 1-5, guys. 1-5. And then the Generals
you
now
gotta,
5-1.
You got to compound a few things. Think about this. Nick Vogel, who has been arguably the best kicker in this league, has an off day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that really got us.
He misses a few extra points. If I remember right, he missed a field goal last I checked too. And I'm going to reference the box score because I'm not going to just leave that out there. That's unprofessional.
Well, I know he at least missed 2 extra points.
So yes, he missed 1 extra point and a field goal.
Oh, sorry.
That.
Yes,
that's a 4-point swing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. You add on the fact too that some of it's just dumb luck. I'm going to be frank.
Yeah.
Let just look at the second half. How do you go? I can't take it. How do you go a third quarter where you don't have a single offensive snap? 15 minutes, the Generals hold the ball and say, "It's mine now. I play it. This is my toy. I get to play with this. No sharing."
I don't think I don't know if I've ever seen that before or if it's ever happened. I'm sure it's happened at some point.
I have never seen it in my lifetime. That I will put that out there. I cannot recall a moment in any football game I have watched where a team says, "Yeah, we're gonna have the ball all 15 minutes." And credit, the sequence of getting there, of course, was a little awkward, but still.
Well, let's talk about one of those plays here. The Gamblers look to be getting a strong defensive play.
Yeah,
blocking a field goal. Right, that's where it's important. Field goal, not an extra point. They block it. They recover the ball. Donald Payne Jr., he gets good halfway down the field. He gets hit, fumbles the ball, gives the Generals possession again, restarting that drive. They had wasted so much time on that drive and then got the ball back at midfield, moved it all the way down, and then got some points. Right now, what you gotta laugh because it's such a great play and such a horrible play at the same time on both sides, right? It's just which side are you rooting for, the beginning or the end of that play. But there was disappointment for everyone and there was happiness for everyone, just a little bit different. I ain't even mad at them. The Generals, they squeezed it out. I was thinking there was points in this game. I said, "Oh my God, my dudes, my Generals, they're going to screw up my pick, but they got it done. They beat one of the strongest teams in the league. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is the start of of a turnaround. Might be a little bit too late, but maybe he could add something in." No. Last play of the game, got a little bit more salt in the wound with that one. Again, not the last drive, not the last minute. The last flipping play again. God, that hurts. That stings. That's rough.
Right. Well, in the sequence too, I'm re-looking at the play-by-play on Fox Sports here. So it's hilarious. Like I said, third quarter, the only drive is a 14-play, 59-yard blocked field goal on downs. And then it goes in the fourth. That missed field goal is even more detrimental when you think about it, if, say, the game plays out the way it did. Because they'd be up, of course, by a slim margin at that point, by 1. And then you get the fumble for 6. It puts the game out of reach. Mm-hmm. I'm not joking. You could put the game out of reach or put it where it had to be a 3-point possession play. And, the Gamblers had 1 possession in the second half. 1. That's just dumb luck. / a really consistent offense that Mike Riley put on. Because I don't think we have given enough credit to him yet. Mm-hmm. Keep this in mind. DeAndre Johnson, he goes down with an ankle injury we learned later. He starts out pretty solid as usual. And Luis Perez has come in off the bench, which credit, Perez, as we've said, easily could go any of these teams in the league and probably start or at least push for the starting position depending on where he's at. Mm-hmm. And he has to come off the bench. He had some moments, some fumbles did hurt him. Obviously, the fumble recovery for 6 was one of them. But nonetheless, dude made it happen. He followed what Mike Riley wanted to do, which was consistently feed your running backs, make smart passes, and just take any element of Houston pushing it down the field away. That's what they did second half.
Oh, yeah.
That's what won them this game. Kevin Sumlin, at this point, I don't know what really to say to your guys because, look, we just couldn't get off the field. I would be talking with Tim Lewis at this point, the defensive coordinator for the Gamblers, where it's like, look, Bendo breaks great, but like you gotta stop people on like third down and stop these long drives. That tires your guys out. Eventually, that also sways us having chances of getting on the board.
Right.
That's the second half was determined. It was determined by Mike Riley to just play keep away that entire half.
I mean,
and
they did it well. Holy smokes!
And it makes me wonder what Clayton Thorson could have done. Like the guy had a pretty good day. Oh. Honestly, if you're a Gamblers fan, there's been more evidence recent weeks that you should be happy Clayton Thorson's on your side. He just needs to, they need to know how to finish games, calm down, and follow through with the game plan. 15-19. So 78% completion percentage, by the way, 171 yards. Another 3 TDs he can throw onto his list.
Right.
1 pick, but credit. The 1 interception, remember, he thought it was determined by Joe Klatt. He thought that he had an offside. So he threw it up to Devontae Bosby because he thought he had an offsides free play. So that interception is only because of what he thought the refs were getting him. That's a good day.
Sure.
He could have had a much better day if the Gamblers defense just gets off the field.
Sure. No, exactly right. Yeah, if he had more chances out there, because he's starting to look a little bit more solid, but yeah, it's a little bit late now.
Out of all the 1-5 teams, Stefan, the Gamblers are the one that I'm saying, like, going into next year or going into later in the season, like, they're right on the cusp. They have a lot of players that, like, if you retain a lot of them for next year, that's a dangerous team.
Oh, yeah.
They just have to learn to finish. They just got to finish.
They really do remind me, maybe not the current day Lions. I won't speak on the Lions 2022 season just yet because Dan Campbell is a madman. If I trust anyone, it's him to bite someone's kneecaps off.
Dude is a madman.
But they do remind me of the Lions a couple years ago. I mean, they had Matthew Stafford. You had Golden Tate. You had, look at even some of the other names, Megatron there, but you could... Zach, I've seen them win one playoff game in my life, and it was over 20 years ago. How can you consistently be that bad and not even be that bad of a team? I mean, you look at some of the guys that are on the Lions, and they leave the team. They end up in Ndamukong Suh. Again, right. I don't necessarily like his style of play sometimes. He's a little bit too dirty on the field for me. Now, I wasn't mad that he stepped on Aaron Rodgers. Get over it, FTP. Now, anyway, the Houston Gamblers, they remind me very much of the Lions right now. Hopefully, though, they can break that curse for year 2 because you're right. If you do keep Clayton Thorson, you keep some of those receivers that he's been targeting well, there's some keys.
Isaiah Zuber and Redding alone last 2 weeks, I'd be like, you better have those guys next year.
You have the core pieces are there. I mean, at the beginning of the season, the announcers were straight up mocking the Gamblers defense, but more and more, they're getting scarier and scarier. You're seeing some of those picks. You're seeing some of those forced fumbles, tip balls, things of that nature. See where, you know what? I'll be happy, and I'll be really happy if we do somehow see them move into that market next year. So I can watch them live, but speculation zone. We don't know that yet. You
want to talk about you want to talk about stats? I mean, that's what the Gamblers are. They're a stats team. They're more of a look shiny on paper, but that doesn't mean that it's good results. I mean, Fox has the key players tab to all their games. The two stars that shine the most in this one, of course, Thorson at 3 Ts, but Chris Odom. Dude leads the league with 8 sacks, by the way. He leads in 3 defensive categories.
Yeah, that's insane.
By himself. Donald Payne, 2 sacks last week, 18 tackles. 18 tackles. He was everywhere. He just didn't know how to hang on to the ball.
Right.
He just doesn't know how to hold a ball.
Which, you can't really blame him that much. He's a defensive guy. But yes, you need to practice that because you're starting to see that it is a thing that can happen. And man, that's such a stinger to get such a run, such a nice return, only to let it fumble out at the very end. So
exactly. You have a future here. You just gotta finish the damn thing. You were damned if you do, damned if you don't anyway. Because if you had picked the Panthers at the beginning of the year, you also would be just with me.
Oh yeah, I know.
But with probably less optimism, just because of
I don't know. I actually feel like the Panthers are in a similar boat as the Gamblers. Maybe not as much flash. There's a couple key pieces that I think they need to tweak, fix, or replace. But I wouldn't say that either of our teams are nearly as bad as the Maulers. Yet we all share the same record. right? So at least I'll give you that much. But yeah, isn't that funny? Maybe it is me. I cursed them both by debating which team to choose. Now they're just both have the Lions curse thanks to me.
And I'm having a good laugh that you said that what you said just before that, where it's like, at least we're not the Maulers. Except you lost the Maulers.
Well, I know but that's such a Lions thing to do as well.
I know. I just, it's just so funny. These 1-5 squads, like, I mean, for like, it's been competitive. Like, that's what's nice. Like, they're 1-5. You can look at the stat. You can look at the record sheet and be like, oh, these guys probably suck. But you like, look at Houston. You just go back at you look at the recaps of these games, like, oh my God, this team could be a playoff team right now, for crying out loud.
Again,
said things go their way.
The last 3 weeks, if it was not one change, we'd be what, 4-2? I mean, you could shoot, man. You could be 5-1. I mean, yeah,
you can be pushing. I mean, I think it'd be pushing if I said you were going to be undefeated. I think you'd be 5-1. I'd say you wouldn't beat the Stallions, but I mean, the last 3 weeks, yeah, you could definitely be 4-2. You know,
it's a dang shame.
Last second things.
At least it's something to look forward to, like you mentioned. But you know what? Let's talk about ratings, then we'll talk about something else to look forward to real quick. Ratings, yeah. I'd say, did a little bit better this week in some areas. Now, it was a little bit tricky because there was the preliminary numbers looked like the league was going to do real gangbusters over the weekend. They still did good on NBC. It was mainly in part because they were sandwiched around the Preakness Stakes, right? You had that early game with the Bandit Stars, Preakness Stakes, and they go into the Panther Stallions, which was nice to see from NBC, right? That feels to this date, that's more of a Fox thing, right? We have this big lead-in event, so we're going to put the USFL there, or an event that either comes after or before. Seeing it from NBC, kind of a nice touch. But the first game, early Saturday game, Bandit Stars on NBC, 785,000. Now, originally, this one marked in a little bit over 1 million. So the final numbers dropped a little bit. But overall, I'd say this is pretty good. Anything over 500,000 to 700,000, I'm happy. 785, yeah, I still want to see 1 million. But the early game, sure, I'll take it. The promising news here, though, the late Saturday game, Panthers Stallions, even with the delay, getting the end of the game cut off, 1.196 million. Now, again, this one, I think, originally sat at like 1.4, 1.5 million. So after adjustments, it went down a little bit. So, because I had a couple of people ask me what had happened with that. And that's essentially what it was. Those were the preliminary numbers. Either way, I'm happy with these. Now, again, if we ever start hitting that point where we're under 500,000 on the bigger networks, then maybe I'll start wringing my collar a little bit. Early Sunday game, Breakers versus Maulers. We've traditionally seen lower viewership on FS1 USA. We see that here as well, 281,000. I think part of this could also be that it's the Maulers. The Breakers are one of those teams where the people show up for their team, but I mean, with a game like that, if the weather's nice out, you're going to get debate there. Yeah, I'm probably going to go choose the weather than maybe watch my team squash the Maulers, which it wasn't really a squash, but either way. Rounding out the action, though, Gamblers Generals, we had 665,000 on Fox. Now, this is the one that maybe is probably the most disappointing of them all. One, it's on Fox. You want to try to get a little bit closer to that million. It was the later game. I get it. I think they might have had some competition with the NBA playoffs as well, so that probably had partially to do with it. Overall, though, I'm not disappointed with these numbers. Again, once I start seeing the league officials start worrying about the numbers, that's when I'll start worrying about the numbers. If you start seeing them not talking about them at all, then maybe there's a little bit of cause for concern there. But overall, I think they're good. This is exactly what we want to see for the first year. At minimum, we're seeing the baseline, right? When you look at the FS1, the USA, if you can get over 250,000, which I think that was about the low, maybe it's 230, but around 250. If you get above that, I'm happy because you're still above the baseline. So similar with the NBC Fox thing. Yes, preferably I'd like to see them all hit 1 million. I get that not all of them are because there's other circumstances, like I said, with weather or competition, things like that. But again, if you get over 650, I think that's good enough. As long as you get one over 1 million each week, I think that's sustainable. That's your showcase game, at least something to build on. But let me ask you, Zach, you worried, you concerned, think the goods, the bads, what are you seeing here?
Yeah, I think I can go with a pretty mixed even bag on this week. And, there's a lot to take. I mean, obviously there's plenty to discuss when it comes to how NBC did their scheduling. Yes, the Panthers Stallions game was after the Preakness Stakes. I know that people have pointed that out. I don't know how many horse racing enthusiasts are also football enthusiasts. So I can't really I mean, we're not getting like a bunch. There's a lot more data that these TV networks are getting that we aren't getting released. Like for me, I would love to see what the local ratings are. We've barely gotten that. We've had 1 week where they said the Panthers hit a 4.0 in their in their area. So to me, if I had to go off that early data as well as the Stallions, my angle is, yeah, sure, maybe the Preakness helped, but the Panthers also responded really well out of the gate. Their market did. The Stallions, no shock. It's a better time for them to watch. We talked about last week or the week prior, people were in church and all that, and that might have affected. This week, it's a primetime game. It's back to 1 million easy. I'd say that those two markets helped a lot of that as well. The Panthers, like I said, Michigan's responded well, it sounds like. So, even with the 1-5 start. So I'll take that.
Well, if anyone's used to a bad team, it's the Michiganders. I'll say it. So
it is. Yeah. So I take that as a good for the league. Back in the 1 million column, something that you can say, hey, we're getting these numbers up. NBC's hitting million games as well as Fox. I look at, for example, the cable game. FS1 USA. They're just mainly using them to dump them off if they need to for less attractive games. That's me being honest. That's how I've seen it. They've been putting a lot of the games aren't supposed to be as big a matchups on those networks if they're able to. So FS1's been getting those games, and that's about where we're hitting right now. Mostly the 300 to 200K range is the floor, it seems. So we'll see. This week's going to be you can tell will be a big test for the cable networks in terms of where that goes. And then finally, the two OTAs that hit below 1 million. NBC's, okay, that's fine. That's about what I expect for their range. They've been hitting around that 785. That's not too bad. I also don't see like Tampa Bay and Philadelphia. They're bigger markets that don't have as much smaller local draw. I mean, we saw with the XFL 2.0, they were also a big market that didn't have as much pull as others. So that angle, I go, okay, not 100% shocked, but that's solid. The Fox game, I don't know. That one's hard for me. It's a good game. Sure, the New York City area, that's one thing. A lot of this I can attribute, I'll add on in terms of like outside sports. I think this one got hit hard by it. There's a lot of hockey that was on Sunday. And I mean a lot, like 3 playoff games. If you want to add local market, some variance, yes, New York market, New Jersey, that metro, it's not as big. Like it's saturated a lot, which means there's a lot of properties in it that you can watch. The Rangers are playing. Playoff hockey's big in New York. Yeah. And honestly, the Generals, even though there is nostalgia for the old Generals, it's not going to supersede the New York Rangers, who are an original 6 hockey team. I'm going to
not in the Northeast or the Midwest.
That. Yeah, not at all. Plus the Gamblers not being good in terms of the record books. I mean, it's kind of a hard draw to sell on a later Sunday. I still was hoping it would push 700. I'll be admitting. So, got something to keep an eye on. I think that, like I said, this week we'll talk about it, but I think it was a mixed bag of good and bad. They're still hitting numbers that Fox is happy with. You just got to be careful because it's like, even the 665, I'm like, that's still kind of lowish. Hopefully that's the floor. Right. We talk about the floor. Don't want to go lower than that floor.
For sure. And we'll sound the alarms if we ever have to, but so far I'd say good. So good enough. B+.
Yeah. Stallions game on primetime's hitting 1 million. Like that shows the local draw is coming in.
Oh, absolutely.
The local fans are watching those games, so that's good. That is a big thing. Like, hey, if we get you to your market, we can get more TV viewers. Yeah. Take that away when you sell those franchises.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, they had a pretty good crowd this week as well. I mean, after last week where it had that early start overlapped with church, we saw a lot of people show up in the second half, but maybe not as much as we've seen in the previous weeks. I think last week's matchup,
and even with the lightning delay, keep that in mind too. Yeah. Most of them stayed around, so
which is always good to hear. Which the The businesses around that stadium must be loving this league. I mean,
I bet they are.
We've already talked about the business they've doing based on interviews and things like that, but I would love to see the numbers after everything's kind of said and done here. Looking forward, though, like we mentioned earlier in the episode, playoffs are like right around the corner. Before you know it, they're going to be here, and the playoff pictures, starting to slowly take shape. Now we might have a couple locks this week. Some good, some bad. Yeah. Now, clearly, we were talking about this last week. Generals and Stallions, they're the ones that are looking to clinch this up here. Now, here are the scenarios. From the Generals, they have two different paths. One, they beat the Bandits. Two, the Panthers and the Maulers lose. Either one of these can easily be done, as we've seen in the weeks leading up to this one. So I would say, and we'll get to the picks later, but I think it's pretty likely that the Generals clinch here. Now, the Stallions, they have a little bit of I don't want to say tougher path. I think it's just inevitable, but they might not get it done this week. So they have to beat the Maulers, which I think they can. I'm pretty sure they can. And then both the Panthers, they need to beat the Maulers, and then the Bandits lose to the Generals.
Right.
So and again, both of these things could happen because the Generals are a pretty mean machine, but as we'll talk about later, will the Bandits continue that trading win-loss record and maybe delay the inevitable for the Stallions another week? We'll see. But it does lead us to something interesting here, Zach. I don't know if you're looking at the notes, though. The Philadelphia Stars, who I would say at this point is the solid number 2 in the North, unless something crazy happens, unless they start pooping it up or, again, the Panthers or the Maulers really get some things together, I'd say it's a pretty good bet that we're going to see the Stars and the Generals in the postseason for the North. They play each other week 10. Now, that's good and bad, Zach, because one, you kind of get to test out your team. Two, though, if you don't want to show too much, right? If I were these coaches, if nothing relied on this game, meaning that the Panthers or the Maulers couldn't catch up, there's nothing in jeopardy, I would have all my bench guys out on that game for both teams. I mean, maybe throw out your starters for the first quarter. But God, if one of them gets injured in this game, and then you have to play that exact team next week, I mean, there's only so much you have with your backup guys to where they're eventually going to learn your whole playbook if you have to rely on them to win. Where if nobody matters, you play it out. You run you Kirby Wilson this game. You run every play down the middle and run that clock, both sides, and say, let's just get to next week, and then we play. But it's creating an interesting scenario here for sure.
You think about your NFL teams if you're watching in, and think about how the playoffs affect how they run. Now, we in recent years haven't gotten to see that put into fruition. You know, we've been wanting to see a alt or spring football playoff set up. So this is the first time it's looking almost a lock. I don't want to curse it even. That's why I'm saying almost. It's almost looking like a lock. We will get a full season in and have all the stuff to talk about like a normal league season. So nonetheless, I look at that scenario where you have back-to-back weeks. And I'm thinking maybe you do. You know, the trends, at least for both these teams, is that they probably are going to have their playoff spots locked up. I'll be honest with you, as we've discussed in length last week, the Panthers and Maulers, both their schedules are rough to end the year. They really are. I mean, they take the brunt of some of the best to end this season. I mean, for the Panthers' sake, crying out, they got the Breakers this week, and then you have the Stars, which, I mean, they played them close, but like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's kind of hard for me to see at that point if it would be in reach or not. Even if they beat the Stars, you have the Generals right after that. Right. I'm sure you end the season with the Maulers, but at that point, it feels like you'll be out of reach. The Maulers, I mean, we've already gone at length. They have the 3 best teams in a row. They got the Stallions this week, for crying out loud. They got to go against. There's no luck for these lower teams. So if Philadelphia's already locked it up by, say, week 9, or maybe they go into week 10, that position's locked in. I mean, shoot, you got back-to-back games. I agree. Why waste your time with trying to show out and win this game? You know that unless the Generals collapse, they'll probably lock up the North. So they're probably, and there's no true home field advantage. So, like, why not just, rest up your guys, maybe get some backups sometime? This would be a perfect time to get them some film so that these guys can look, if they want to look elsewhere, the NFL's looking around.
And get ready for the postseason. I mean, in all reality, everybody on the team matters when it comes to the postseason. I mean, it matters in the regular season, don't get me wrong, but in the postseason, I mean, that's when you're really getting deep and dirty into your playbook, trying everything out, doing everything you can to win that game and get to the championship or get that championship trophy. So, yeah, I think that's the play. I think it's almost guaranteed that that's what we're going to see as far as the matchups go. It's just when is it going to be confirmed? I think as early as this weekend, well, clearly as early as this weekend, it could be the Generals. But I think, well, we'll save it for the picks, actually, because but one other topic here, because this is one to bring up. So we talked about the guys that could lock in their spot. Well, there's one team here that can lock themselves out, and I get to be the lucky guy. It's the Houston Gamblers. And so if they lose and the Breakers win, there's no path. There's no path in to get enough games, enough wins in to make the postseason. And I mean, at that point, I think, you just start preparing for season 2. You start tweaking that playbook. You start just trying everything. There's one thing I love, and this is what I do love about being a Lions fan, is that last game of the season, there's nothing else left to do. There's no chance at a postseason appearance. And you end up seeing some of the most amazing plays, usually from special teams, right? I'm sure you'll remember there was that viral Pat McAfee video of him calling the final Lions game of the year when the kicker, can't remember his name, I'm sorry, Matt Prater. Went for faked the kick, threw it in for a touchdown. McAfee goes wild. If it was not the last game of the year, you wouldn't see that play. But because it is, you do, and you get to see them try all sorts of different things out. And so that's what we'll see the Gamblers go into, I think, more circus mode, see some more experimental stuff, just start planning for season 2. And they might start doing that after this week. We'll see, because it's getting close. But let's preview the week. Let's talk about picks. Now, I spoke about this earlier. I kind of screwed myself, Zach. You gave me the freebie. You gave me the freebie by picking the Panthers over the Stallions. I had to get fresh. I had to get sassy. I had to pick the Maulers to win the game. Clearly, the Maulers didn't win, so that kind of screwed my advantage. We both ended the week 2-2. I'm still in it, though. I'm 8-13. Oh, God, I hate looking at that. You're still edging over 500 at 11-10. But God, I mean, I'm starting to feeling a little gamblersy here, because I'm feeling like I might be locked out of this soon. First game of the weekend, though, we got the Generals taking on the Bandits, 12 p.m. Eastern on Saturday on USA. One real quick thing I want to point out from last week, a weird statistic, even though it doesn't really mean much. Every team that won last week was technically the home team. First time that's happened this season. Don't think that there's really anything to that other than chance, but maybe there's something to it. And I'll bring that up here because we have the Generals and the Bandits. I mean, the Generals have been on a run. Now, we don't know the status of DeAndre Johnson yet. Now, the Bandits, I brought this up earlier, all season they've traded win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. They had a loss last weekend, which would mean that they're due for a win this weekend. Are the Generals due for a loss? This could be the one. Depending on if DeAndre Johnson comes back. Now, that's nothing against Luis Perez because he did pull out the win last week. He had his moments. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I think after last week, I'm given the confidence that no matter who's behind center for the Generals, that you can pull this off against Tampa Bay. Look, again, Matthew Colburn ripped apart solely by himself. He demolished the Tampa Bay Bandits when it was just, even when it wasn't that they were scoring on turnovers, they were able to do what they pleased running up and down the field. So, I mean, look at New Jersey, even if they like DeAndre, that just adds into that argument and that chemistry. If not Trey Williams, Darius Victor, they can easily handle their workload. That front five for the Generals is one of the best in the league, whether it is pass or run blocking. I just think that they're hitting their stride. And honestly, Mike Riley, the calm, collected person that he is, he has his team believing that they can pull this off no matter who is behind center, who is in that personnel, and whoever needs to play the hero that week has to play hero. KaVontae Turpin, talk about another person that early season, it was Randy Satterfield and company that were making their own impressions. Now it's KaVontae Turpin's show, as he was coined, I think, during the post-game press conference as electricity.
Yeah.
So there's obvious reasons for that. Dude has been, electric, all over the place, a weapon, a true star in this league in recent weeks. He's going to keep making impact. Luis Perez had a good connection with him. He's also, Luis, that is, has settled in and has found receivers and been smart with the ball. And if they play keep away against the Bandits, that nullifies what they've been doing well. You don't allow Ta'amu to get going. If you slow down the run game, which, Tampa has some options, but they aren't as much of a threat in the run as they are in the past. So if you get pressure on Ta'amu, you make him uncomfortable, I think you walk away with this. I got the Generals in this, honestly. Plus, no offense to Bandits fans out there, you still haven't beaten a winning record team this season. I'm just saying, you're beating up on the lower squads of the USFL. This would be great. You almost pulled off against Philadelphia last week, but I guess to add on a trend is what I'm doing here. It's a tough sled. I think the Generals, no matter what, this is theirs to lose. They have all the pieces, I think, to dispatch Tampa Bay. And they can just do it on the ground. They don't really even have to throw that much. They have the elements on the ground. I think, though, if DeAndre Johnson's stats for the game is that it's probable or even he's even able to come back, though, I'm more confident with him behind center to dispatch them than I am with Luis. That's not a slight at Luis. That's just saying that it goes into that run scheme where dual threat option, he's going to burn you outside or burn you with the pocket breaks down, and he just adds to that triple option run threat.
Right. I'm torn on this one because, I have a feeling that we're probably going to pick the same ones for the next 3 games here. So, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say the trend continues. I'm going to say the trend continues. Tampa Bay edges it out. I think they barely edge it out. Now, this is a risky one. This one is assuming that Luis Perez gets the start, DeAndre Johnson doesn't come in, and that just luck goes their way. You bring up some very worrisome points for me. Is one, the Generals are stacked. They single-handedly saved my fantasy team because right now I got KaVontae Turpin, I got Darius Victor. Oh, and I got another one of their players I can't recall.
Oh yeah, dude, if we're talking fantasy, mine tanked in one of the USFL Expert League I'm in. Mine tanked when Brian Scott went down because there were people took all the QBs. So I've been off the radar on that because my QB's gone and I don't have a good backup. So nonetheless, though, options.
Well, we're tied in the newsroom one now. I'm coming back from behind. I was doing so poorly, and now we have a 3-way tie for second. I beat the guy that was undefeated last week. I think it's you and me playing each other this week, if I believe. At you and,
geez, look at me.
So we gotta come on. I need a win somewhere. But yeah, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to play. I'm still kicking myself for switching my bet on the Stars last week because you talked me in to going against the Stars last week. And I'm kicking myself for that. So I'm going to stick with the Bandits this week. I'm going to say they edge it out, but I might regret it. Now, moving to the next game of the weekend, Breakers, Panthers, Saturday, later game, 8 p.m. Eastern, FS1. So again, we've already seen a trend here. Neither of the 2 games on Saturday are getting that showcase treatment, if you will. One's on USA, one's on FS1, but it is a holiday weekend. So I think they already expected that ratings were going to be a little bit lower. Me personally, I'm going to be covering the games, but if I wasn't covering the games, like if I didn't have a stake in it, I would be at the lake, Zach. I'm not going to even flick and lie. And I know that people that don't have a stake in it, like people that are just casual, you can watch these things on demand. Right.
Exactly. I'm going to be in no curtains as well. My family's doing basically a Memorial Day party. Well, Memorial Day weekend on Saturday. They're doing a beer tasting party with a bunch of friends and people. I have to get a growler of something local from Indianapolis, so I gotta do that little trip here soon enough. But nonetheless, I have that. I plan on going to the drive-in movie theater because I haven't done that all summer. But I still am going to watch these games, one way or another. So there's that. Nonetheless, though, as we hinted, this is cable week. I'm actually kind of intrigued to see where the cable ratings are this week going into our next show, because half the schedule is cable or it's Peacock, which we'll say a little later. So yeah, FS1, but man, I don't the matchup on paper already, Breakers, Panthers. I mean, what do you want me to say here? Basically Michigan gets a draw of the second best South team. The Breakers are no slouch. Credit Kyle Sloter, as it's been throughout the whole season, still dealing with that lingering groin injury, still dealing with some things like that. But now, like last week, and the way that the Panthers have been against the run in recent weeks, Jones and Ellis, if they lean on them, that's kind of the ticket to me for beating Michigan, quite frankly. And then you just use New Orleans' excellent secondary and just take advantage of Michigan's mistakes. They're bound to make a mistake. It's with every game. It's bound to happen. That front four is also no joke. Bellamy and Miller, they're going to find a way. Michigan's front five is okay at best. It still allows a little too much pressure at times on the outsides. Michigan, I mean, they have to lean on Reggie Corbin and company. There's rumor that Shea Patterson, that Shea might or might not be on the team. We're going to have to watch out how that goes.
Quick update. The rumors were true. Shea Patterson has been released by the Michigan Panthers, but he's found himself a new spot. So I'm jumped in to talk about this. We recorded a little bit earlier this week, but hey, we got your back. So yes, Shea Patterson cut from the Michigan Panthers, but he finds himself a spot with the New Orleans Breakers. And I mean, if you ask me, this is pretty big news for the Breakers. We see Kyle Sloter still kind of nursing an injury. He's getting better. He's getting a little bit more mobile. But you know what? They're bringing in another mobile quarterback. And realistically, at least my take, they're getting ready for that postseason run. They're trying to bolster the offense as much as they can. And you know what? This is a guy that might be able to help them in those extra games going into the offseason. Now, we also have another big transaction. Kyle Lauletta has been let go from the Pittsburgh Maulers. I mean, it's been pretty clear since Vad Lee came in that he's going to be the starter. He's been making plays. I mean, for crying out loud, he got them their first win. Well, another one, though, Lauletta, he's been let go, but he finds himself a spot as well over in the New Jersey Generals. So, again, he's looking pretty competitive up there, or at least a competitive team, so he has a chance to at least move into the postseason and bolster that offense as well, because if you remember last week, DeAndre Johnson took a little bit of an injury. This signing tells me that maybe that injury is going to take a little bit longer to get him 100%. They want to get a little bit more backup with Luis Perez. So now we have Kyle Lauletta staying in the north, heading over to New Jersey. But that's it for the quick update. Maybe you'll see me again. Until then, back to the show.
But I say this pick as Shea or not, I got New Orleans walking away with this, man. There's too many elements that are making me say, no, ain't going to happen. You ain't going to keep up with New Orleans. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm not getting cheeky on this pick. I was going to try to convince you to go for a homer pick again, but I know that one's a little bit too much of a stretch here.
My confidence is it's plummeting.
We need to we both need to unclick the bell and click it again and get some of the morale. But either way, yeah, I mean, I don't see a path for Michigan to pull this one out. Yes, they could. I think it all comes down to Reggie Corbin getting hot. If Reggie Corbin could get hot, and I mean, he's going to be carrying a lot of the team at that point too, because
yes, he will.
I mean, you have to, well, one, from the quarterback standpoint, you can't make the damn mistakes. You got to be consistent. You have to keep moving the ball. You can't give it away. The Breakers defense, even if Sloter's still working through an injury, I think there's enough of that there to carry them through it. And as we mentioned, Sloter's starting to get more and more mobile. So the more he gets mobile, the better he's going to perform anyway, for a myriad of reasons. So yeah, I think the Breakers walk away with this one. But I mean, that's the great thing about spring football. It truly is. Beyond it being a trap game, it's spring football. When the Panthers, not the Panthers, but the Maulers won. I mean, they had some great moments in that game. I mean, that comeback was nothing other than spectacular, but then they went back to being the same old Maulers. And again, they weren't playing the gamblers and they weren't leading at the half and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think we both agree there. Now, moving to the next game, I think you should pick the Maulers here. I picked the Maulers the last 2 weeks.
All right, I'll be fair.
Oh, wow, really?
I'll be fair.
Oh,
yes,
no.
I will.
Man, that what that means though. That means my fruition is gonna my guess is gonna come to fruition. I said earlier this year that you watched the Maulers gonna beat the Stallions. I don't think it's gonna happen. But God, it could sting me hard. It could even out my win if it happens. But I appreciate that, Zach. Thanks for keeping me in the game here.
This is me talking myself into this. I did this on one of my other shows where I picked a heavy underdog and I just talked myself into like, yeah, that'll totally work. Here's how this works, Stefan. Third week with Vadley and company in practice, you get a little more timing with Trey Walker and Bailey Gaither. As we saw, they need a little more time. Obviously, Gaither and him weren't on the same page at some times, but you get them a little more comfortable. Obviously, you take advantage of the first half. You get out to a hot start if you can. Otherwise, for the Maulers, look, the Maulers defense isn't too bad. It's a relatively good unit. Your main thing now is going to be, okay, how do we handle balancing like Skip Holtz doing this flip-flop QB setup? Like, it's not like Mike Riley's where it was purposeful. Now it's like, Skip's in a mood, he's flipping to someone. That's where we're at this point in the season. So who do you prepare for out of the gate? Who's starting? We'll find out. And then after that, it comes down to, making sure that you put pressure on the quarterback that you're going against. And really, I mean, I think it depends on who. If you see Alex Magoo come out, just be prepared to do run first protection. Be sure to take advantage of stacking the box a bit. Maybe they throw one deep, but they have people I think can cover up. You have Marlon Williams also out, by the way. At least last we saw he's out. It's like Trenny might be out still. So you have that element out of it. But I think it's going to come down to, who do you start out with first? How fast of a start you can get? And I think this is another week that you can see a step with Vadley and his receivers getting hot a little bit. And also, just lean on Madre London first. He's starting to become the head running back in that setup. I know they have a committee. I know Groshek early in the year was their guy. Groshek is doing split carries, but London is more the explosive capability as well as a better pass catching ability. Get him involved in the passing game too, by the way. Like, don't make it one dimensional, which is hard for me to say for Kirby Wilson. But I think that there's things like, they do a little more experimentation. They have nothing to lose. That's another.
Well, here's
they have nothing to lose.
Here's the benefit of having Vadley on the team. So we touched on this last week, but I don't think we really went into how important it could be. So as they were talking about on the broadcast, the week prior to Vadley joining the league, he was watching all of the games, taking notes, studying all of the playbooks, just in case he got called, so he had a good idea of what the offense looked like on each team. I mean, he's actively been studying these teams like a coach up until 2 weeks ago, right? And so, I mean, I'm not picking him, but to your benefit, I mean, as you start gelling, he might start being able to read some of the defenses on the team, giving the suggestions to the coach. Even to start, we've already seen him say, no, this is the play that we should run, coach, and the coach, go for it. And it works. It works.
And he can perform. The thing is with Vadley, and Joe Klatt said this too with any of the quarterbacks in this league so far. Got to get him. He's the one you got to get into a rhythm early, and you got to get him comfortable with throwing passes early and not having to stop start. Kirby Wilson gets into tendencies where he'll like zone in on what he wants to do for like 2 or 3 series, and then realizes, okay, it's not working. Now we got to switch it up. Instead, try and be a little more balanced with how you do your series. I think that's for him what's really important. Stop running on third down, by the way, because it doesn't always work. Generally, it doesn't work. You have people you can throw to, so you got to let that happen. I think there's opportunities. I'm more throwing you a bone. Again, if you guys watching this or listening, I'm throwing them a bone here. I really would pick the Stallions if I wasn't being such a generous co-host right now, but I'm going to do it. I see Pittsburgh has an avenue. It's just, you got to execute everything perfectly if you want to have a chance. And you know what? Another element, trap game. I'll throw the trap game in there too. Why not? Everything that I can find from the bottom of the barrel of the reasonings is what I'm going to throw at.
Well, I'm going to kick myself if they win because I've been teasing it being a trap game all season, but you know what? I'm going to let you take it. Now, the next one, the more I think about it, we might disagree here. And maybe my logic is a little bit flawed. Maybe it's a little bit off, but a couple things here. One, Houston's due for a win. Houston has been playing well. They've been there's something about that last quarter that they can't make it happen. Now, last week, there was some different circumstances. Again, how do you not get on the field the entire third quarter? That killed you. A couple missed kicks, that killed you. Those two changes, the game would have been the other way. Now, here's the other reason. Again, flawed logic maybe, but you know what? Superstition supersedes all sometimes. Similar logic to the Tampa Bay Bandits, win-loss, win-loss. They had the win last week. I'm thinking trend continues. I'm saying the Stars take a loss this week. Here's a couple things. They're usually not very well against protecting against the run. The Gamblers have been slowly becoming very dangerous at their running game. Clayton Thorson's getting a little bit better at finding his receivers, or at least knowing where his receivers are going to be, or maybe it's his receivers knowing where he's actually going to throw the ball. And more importantly, I think the defense is stepping it up in a way to where, if, again, Donald Payne can get a little bit more grip on that ball, maybe practice running with the ball a couple times throughout the drills this week, something maybe go a little bit over more than what you're used to from the defensive drills. I think they could pull it out, and I think they do pull it out. Close game, sure. Here's the other trickery, and I'm not going to put my pick on this. I think the Gamblers also down at the halftime. Superstition. It's a superstition pick here. The ref's calling it. Gamblers take it out, squeeze it out. Maybe not the last play of the game, but they're going to come back from behind and win this one.
Weird, they're both going to feel really good after this week or going down with the ship, because I actually pegged the Houston Gamblers to get their second win of the season. There's a lot of stuff in this matchup that pins well for Houston. What do we talk about the Philadelphia is worst at? What is the worst thing they have done this season?
Well, their line, right?
Their pass pro is one. You said this, you said exactly what it is. Their pass pro is arguably one of, if not the worst in the league. I feel bad saying that to those because there's a hardworking men out there, but let's face it, Brian Scott, Case Cookus, they get sacked regularly every game. And that could be because it's a pass heavy offense. That could be because of the line. Nonetheless, what does Houston do well? They get to the quarterback. They make your day a living hell back there if you give them time. Chris Odom, especially Chris Odom, and Donald Payne after last week, they can get after him. I think this is your best chance to get your second win, just because Philadelphia matches up so well in terms of what you can possibly do to get back to Case Cookus on any given play. Now, to mitigate that, of course, they can try and lean on Matt Colburn or Darnell Holland, but if you slow down the run game and you just focus on trying to make Case Cookus feel like he has no time or the comfort level is at zero, there's a possibility of winning it. Plus, Philadelphia, I think there are places you can be susceptible against them at least on offense, defensively. I mean, remember, Houston's got weapons. They just have to consistently be able to make drives. And I put a warning out there. Clayton Thorson, do not throw to Amani Dennis. If people have not learned this already, Amani Dennis is one of the best CBs in the league. Stay away from him. That is my main thing to you. Throw to anyone else for the most part, except Amani Dennis. He will burn you at some point. He is a good one-on-one cornerback, good for man coverage. You have plenty of options. Try and diversify the portfolio this week. Theo Redding, I noticed he's getting some more catches lately. Isaiah Zuber has been, pretty reliable. You got JoJo Ward healthy again. Hey, maybe get a few passes over to him his way. Anthony Ratliff Williams. I mean, there's places you can go. Even Brandon Barnes, who has had little to no interaction. I've been shocked, but you have the best potential so far this year if it's just matchup alone, like not even just going on like, hey, we can come down to the wire. We're a good enough roster to get down to like one play away. This is the best chance for you to just say, like, on paper that Houston could go away with the win. So
it would at least
just get after.
It would at least redeem that Mahler's loss for me, because we'd beat. Yeah, it's not a winning record, but it's an even record, right? And that I'll take what I can get. Now I'll tell you this: I feel bad for some of our fans. So AJ, guy with the cowboy hat. Sometimes he does videos in front of his pickup truck.
Yeah, I actually had a good phone call with him this week.
Very good.
I had a nice talk about the team. No joke.
Nice.
Yeah. Shout out to him. He's probably listening right now to this.
Well, I saw his comment about halfway through the game. maybe it was in the last quarter. Or, I can't remember exactly what, but it was before the loss. And he said, they better hold on to this win. And I came there and I said, they did not. I don't know, for a lack of better terms, I can't remember exactly how I said it, but it was basically like, nope. And I said something along the lines of, I don't think there's a miracle that can redeem this season. I'll take every win that we can get. I mean, this delays the inevitable, especially if the Breakers do go out with a loss today. I mean, it does extend the breathing room if you get a win, because if the Breakers win this week, no matter if we win or lose, you need the Breakers to lose out the rest of the season to even have a chance. And you have to win out and hope that the Bandits don't. It ain't going to happen. It just, I mean, there's so many things that have to happen for them to make the postseason at this point that I'd say it's a safe bet that it's not going to happen. But you know what? Those moral wins.
End the year on a high
note. Exactly.
End the year on a high note with the roster you have. That's how I look at it.
Here's something that's we don't really talk about a lot is, going into season 2, the runway for season 1 wasn't very long as far as the time that the teams had to practice with each other, meet each other, learn the playbook, things like that. Sure, they're not going to have training practice over the summer. Maybe even training camp won't be as long next season. But I guarantee you there's going to be some of these players, quarterbacks and receivers, that make it a point to live near each other, or maybe they already do, that will get in the habit of meeting each other on their own and practicing and working on that gelling together in the off season, to where season 1, we've already seen a good quality of play. With the broadcasting's, I think, been top notch, but the quality of play it's been there. It's improved every week, I'd say, at least, to where season 2 really has the potential to hit the ground running with some quality football. So I don't know, just something else to look forward to. But I'm just trying to think of things to make me feel better about my Gamblers being 1-5.
I think out of all the 1-5 teams, you should feel the best, honestly. That's the main takeaway for Gamblers fans. You have a roster. It's just, you got to just finish. That's it. Some of it's snake bitten. Some of it's like just not executing it in crunch time. You just got to finish. That's the main takeaway. You have a good roster. I think that, like I said, this is the best matchup so far to me with what Houston does best, that I think that they can pull a win off. That's why I'm confident. I think they can win against Philadelphia. Philadelphia, like you're talking, very hot and cold. Every week it's a different story. I think that, this one, I think actually this will be, arguably, you could say this one could put up the most points of the week. These two offenses have the capability of putting up fireworks. I just think that Houston's going to be able to get enough pressure to where they make Cookus's day a living hell. Chris Odom will make sure his imprint on this league is more so put in. I think he gets 10 sacks this week. I think he breaks double digits this week. Is what I'm predicting.
Well, it's unfortunate because you kind of touched on it, but this could be the game of the week, and it's one of the exclusive Peacock games. So the early game Sunday's on Fox at 2. This game's at 6 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. So probably not going to get a lot of viewers. We haven't seen any of the numbers from Peacock. I don't expect to see them for the rest of the season if we haven't seen them yet. But this could be the game. This could be that sleeper game that not many people see that really exceeds people's expectations.
You notice with the Stallions Maulers games, the 2:00 start, 1:00 Central, which means, as we talked 2 weeks ago, you're out of church.
No, they definitely made a point of that. You're
probably going to sit in.
Well, you made a point of that. And you know what, though? It is a holiday weekend, so I think the viewership's going to be down. I'm just going to preface that. I think the viewership, beyond the fact that we're seeing most of the games on cable and then the Peacock exclusive, adding in that Memorial Day weekend, I think the numbers are going to take I don't want to say a huge dip, but they're going to see a dip. Now, the in-person attendance, though, I think has the opportunity to do great because, again, you get out of church, you go see a game, go home and grill, or you go home, the next month, the next day you grill, probably a 3-day weekend. Go out, get some cheap entertainment, bring the kids for free, pending they're 15 and under. So that it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting what the ratings look like. But for anybody, you watch, Zach, this will really be the telltale sign of who are the people that like the bad news and who's reporting the news. If we get people celebrating bad numbers or talking it up next week and ignoring the fact that it's a holiday, whereas nobody wanted to ignore the fact that the Preakness Stakes was here last weekend, then that shows you those are the people that report bad news instead of reporting the facts. So that's how I'll say it. The numbers are going to be down next week. Those are the two reasons. Now, I will put an asterisk on that. There is a limit. Like if we hit less than 100,000 viewers on one of these broadcasts, that's tough. That's a hard pill to swallow.
I mean,
right?
if we get there, then that's catastrophe to me.
I mean, you could see it though. I mean, you could see it to me on that late Saturday game on FS1. You could see it. I'll be honest. A late Saturday game, holiday weekend, people are out at the lake, people are out barbecuing, people are out road tripping, people are doing. It's possible.
Maybe.
But I don't think we'll get there. I think we'll hold up. I think we'll hold up. But the Fox game, don't expect 1 million. I don't think we're going to hit 1 million. Maybe we do. Maybe I'm wrong next week and we laugh about this. One last topic though, to round things out this week, and it's actually about week 8 next week. Our first appearance of the famed or infamous Legion Field. All of the matchups are going to be there. And now that we talked about this earlier this year, this is mainly, they're getting ready for that World Games. People forget the World Games is a big deal and it's heading down to Birmingham, just like the XFL. And you know what? They're going to be using protective. That's why we're seeing the postseason out there in Canton. Well, the beginning stages start next week, week 8. All of the games are in Legion. I don't expect to see a lot of attendance, especially for the non-Stallions games. I don't think we're going to see very many people there. I think people are going to show up for the Stallions game, sure, but I don't know if it's going to be as much as the other ones. Now, this is not from firsthand experience. This is just from what I read online. But I've heard some tales about Legion Field maybe not being in the most savory of towns, of areas. Maybe safety is concerned. So that might shy some people away. But I mean, we saw people show up to the Birmingham Iron games, so I think we're going to see people show up for the Stallions games. If anything, I think it's a nice little change of pace. Give Legion some love. If anything, for the history it holds for spring football. I mean, every team that has come and gone through spring football that's had a team in Birmingham has had at least one play on that field, the old gray lady,
that's exactly
Legion
right.
Field. So you know what? I'll take it. If I'm not going to be there, so maybe that's why I'll say it. But I'll love to watch it on TV. I'm curious to see what the crowds look like. Now that's a big boy to fill up, though. That's a big old stadium. So even if they do pack a crowd, it might not look like a lot. So it'll be hard to kind of tell there. But hey, it's kind of crazy to think that we're talking about week 8 already. And we're talking about Legion Field. I knew that we were going to play there through the season, but for some reason I thought we were going to play there earlier in the season. And then next thing you know, we're a few weeks from the end of the season, and here we are, Legion Field. They're going to wrap us up week 10 as well. I don't know what the week 9 schedule is, if it's half and half or if they're back and protective for that week. But
from what I gathered, I believe it's just 8 and 10 they do Legion, and then 9 they have protective is the last time you're going to be over there. And people, you're of course free to correct us on that, and we'll double check that again. But that's my understanding of how that was being done. But yeah, the old gray lady's going to get, as residents have called her now, she's going to get some games, and it's going to be kind of I think for some of those that were Stallions fans back in the day, like for the original team, I think that's almost going to be kind of a weird feeling, like almost of I guess of maybe it's part nostalgia, part like like a welcoming back, because that was where that version of it from 83 to 85 called home. And a lot of people came out and really supported that version back then and called Legion then their home. So I guess that could be, to people there, it'll be a nice callback for them. At least if you're talking the old one versus the new one. And if you want to reference that name in that way, in your sense, that's pretty cool. I do agree with you though. Like, that's a big stadium. That's like, I mean, you're not going to pack it. I wish we could put like 70,000 in there. You're not going to pack 70,000. I mean, Stallions fans will come out, but you aren't going to get 70,000 in there. Maybe I'm wrong. Prove me wrong, perhaps, but I don't see it. I don't see it. And then the non-home games. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it is what it is at this point. Like, if you're a fan of this league, you're used to it at this point. Like, if you're still complaining at week 7, I'm sorry, just get with the program. That's how it's going to be for the rest of the year. So no changing. Actually,
one last topic, before we cap things off. We saw the return of the drone last week. Now,
we did.
They used it very sparingly. You could see it through the other camera angles, like the camera angles on the field. You could see and hear the drone. But as far as like plays, I don't think we even saw any drone footage until the second day. Now, they did show some of them like creeping up on the stadium. There was some scenic shots, but it was still very sparingly. Now, I wonder if that leads to the rumors that they were trying to, there was an issue being caused by the drones that they wanted to solve for rather than it being a cost efficiency thing. Either way, it's back, which makes me excited that we'll hopefully see it 100% ready for the playoffs and the championship, because I'm a sucker for the drone cam. I know the drone cam, USFL, the Twitter account's probably happy that it's back as well.
I think some of us are. Obviously, some people are annoyed by the sound of the blades in the mic. I don't know specifically what the reason was gone. There's been rumors I've heard rumors of money. I've heard rumors of the signals. Whatever reason it is, it's been gone. And I guess it's nice that we were slowly getting some back. I was kind of shocked at how little they used it while they were flying around. And even on social, because my first thought was, okay, they're barely using it for some of these games. Maybe they're trying to get social shots. And then I realized, okay, they aren't really doing that. So maybe they're testing it out. Maybe they just aren't getting angles. I don't know. But it is coming back. I highly doubt you won't see it go away again. The playoffs, they're definitely going to use it. The championship, they're absolutely going to use it. Look, if they were talking about week one where it's like we have more production value or on par with the NFC championship game, the championship has to be either that or a step above that in terms of what that looks like. So that's already being planned out. You have to match the playoffs. Probably you're going to be pushing that too, if not maybe slightly under that, I imagine. They want to make sure this looks good for TV because that'll be their biggest time to shine, and the drones being back will be it. Hopefully we see more footage because I like the footage of it. The noise, I've gotten used to it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but
that'll get fixed. That'll get fixed.
If we get the nice shots out of it and some of the different looks, that's what I care about.
So the noise thing, that'll get fixed. Not right now, not this year, not next year, but in the next coming years, because they're getting really good at sound cancellation technology. And I think that they'll be able to work that in. I'm not saying that is what they're testing at all right now, and that's why we're not seeing them. But that's the one thing is by the time that they really get the drone thing 100% working and ready to go, I think that they'll be able to cancel the sound out of the broadcast. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. But even with like Adobe Audition, you could do some sound canceling things. And I know there's like real-time elements to it. So I would assume that's coming in the near future. We're going to see all sorts of like AI and weird assisted technologies come and help these broadcasts in the future, which, now I'm getting too old. But either way, I think it was a good week. We had a lot to talk about. We were over halfway through the season. We're moving into week 7. Our picks are doing as good as our picks could be. It could be a lot worse. I'll say that.
I'm fine with being over 500.
Yeah, so. Hopefully I'll catch up sooner or later. Hopefully everybody's been enjoying the show, but if you do, you don't, let us know down in the comments. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. If you're over on social media, make sure you give us a follow. If you're over on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating as well. 5 stars, sign you up. If it's 1 star, I guess you could do that. But 5 star, baby, 5 star day only. Come on, sign us up. If you're on YouTube, click the bell, click the button. It builds morale, all that good stuff. Because I'm telling you can win some cool stuff. Not only can you win a free USFL jersey once we hit 5K, but we're giving away the tickets as well. Like I say, you just need to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us over on Twitter, and make sure you leave a comment on the video because that's how we're tallying everything up. And we'll announce it the show leading into the playoffs, just so you have a little bit of time. Yeah. Any last words before we round things out and head into week 7, my friend?
I hope you all out there enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. It should be jam-packed with football, plenty of sports out there. And hey, even for myself, I'll even throw a shout out to my Indy 500 going on in my backyard as well. So, I hope you all enjoy your weekend with family, friends, whatever you're doing, and for those out there that we're supporting out, of course. Thanks for tuning into the show as always. I think I take solace in that every week. Can't thank you enough for it.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your service if you served in the military. And until next time, everybody, sign you up.